I'm just going to read through with you this text. We have looked at this text already, but to be fair to you, I think we need to read it again. And we're actually only going to do one thing based on this text, but of course when you're reading it in an exam, you have got 10 minutes, although some of you might have a little bit longer if you've got an allowance of extra time. But really, you need to think in terms of a 10-minute block of time to be reading this. And so I'm going to read it to you so that everybody understands and knows what it is we're looking for. So it's not going to take 10 minutes to read. The 10 minutes of your reading would include reading it and then maybe annotating and noting things that are useful to you. But today, I'm just going to read it with you, okay? So, this passage is about Justo Anzoátegui. I apologise for that Spanish pronunciation. He is a young man of 18 who has inherited his family farm near the town of Guernica in Spain. And here we go. Right from line 1. Justo Anzoátegui's reputation rose from Guernica uphill to the village of Luma, where Maria Onati heard that he was a defender of causes and a wit, although some suggested he was too eager to create his own mythology. Most often, she'd heard that he was one to watch during the strength events on feast days. One friend claimed that he had carried an ox into town across his shoulder and celebrated the feat by throwing the beast across the river. Yes, said Justo when asked about the story, but it was only a small ox and a downhill most of the way into town, and the wind was with me when I threw it. Maria came to dance at one of the festivals with her sister. She decided to watch the men's competitions, which she usually avoided. Justo, the largest man standing beside a log at the start of the wood chopping event, joked with the crowd as he removed his boots and grey socks. Going barefoot seemed foolhardy to Maria, for one who would be flailing with an axe so near his feet. After all these years of competitions, I still have 9 toes, he said, proudly wriggling the 4 remaining toes on one of his bare feet. But this is my only pair of boots. I can't afford to damage them. He bent at the waist and tore into the pine log between his feet. The log split beneath him, well before any others in the competition. Justo was seated, 9 toes intact and replacing his boots, before the runner-up broke through his log. In the wine-drinking event, Justo was less impressive, but in the farmer's walk contest, he was unmatched. This event tested strength and endurance as the competitors carried 110-pound weights in each hand along a measured course until they dropped. For most competitors, the collapse followed a familiar pattern. On the second lap, the knees began to bend dramatically. On the third, the shoulders pulled their spine into a dangerous curve, and finally gravity yanked the weights of the man to the turf. Maria stood near the starting point where Justo was called. He grasped the weights, his face straining as if he'd never get them off the ground. It was false drama for the benefit of the audience, because he easily hoisted them and marched without a struggle, his back rigid. Past the marks where others had fallen in exhaustion, Justo nodded to the little ones who would praise him to future generations. "Doesn't it hurt?" a young boy asked. "Of course. How do you think my arms got so long?" Justo answered. And at that moment he straightened his arms against his sides, a move that caused the sleeves of his shirt to ride up, making his arms appear to grow in length. The boy gasped. It so happened, and I want you to pay attention to this because this is the beginning of the section that we're going to look at. It so happened that Maria discovered the need to visit friends near the finishing line. And who could have imagined that just as Justo walked past a friend would say something so amusing that Maria unleashed her most feminine laugh, which caused Justo to turn in her direction. And because it was so amusing, It was natural that she would be smiling her broadest smile when he looked her way. Justo glanced at her and walked on. This must be the most arrogant man in Guernica, she thought. Behind the scenes, Maria quickly arranged to present the prize, a lamb, to the winner. "Congratulations," she said to Justo. She handed him the lamb and moved in for the ceremonial kiss on the cheek. "Thank you," Justo said, announced to the crowd. "I'm going to fill the valley with my flock from winning these events." Justo waved and accepted congratulations as he walked through the crowd, and Maria skirted the gathering so that he would have to pass her again. "Would you like to dance?" she asked. Justo stopped. He looked at himself in his dirty overalls. He looked back at her. "Did somebody tell you to do this?" Justo asked. "No, I just thought you might like to dance, if you're not too worn out from all the chopping and lifting." But they didn't dance. They sat and talked. Her sisters watched them, and on the walk home they unanimously voted against her seeing this boy. She agreed he was not the most handsome man. He was frighteningly powerful, and despite his boasting in front of the crowd, he had been without confidence when they were alone. "He's homely," a sister said. "He's a character," Maria argued. "He's ugly," a less generous sister offered. "He has his own farm," Maria's mother commented from behind the group of girls, and Maria looked thoughtful. Maria was almost 20, the eldest of a family of 6 girls. Her father had injured both legs in a fall at the farm, leaving him fixed to his wooden chair. Maria returned home in silence as her sisters debated Justo's many inadequacies. And that's where the section ends that we will be looking at, but let's just carry on to the end. Others, interested in Maria, presented flowers or sweets when they arrived at her home. Justo arrived empty-handed, but wearing his work clothes. He gave her mother a vigorous handshake, patted the father on his shoulder, and asked a question that instantly won over Mrs. Onati and the sisters. "What can I do to help?" "To help?" the mother asked. "Help. Heavy lifting, wood cutting, repairs, whatever is hardest for you ladies." Maria's mother sat down and wrote out a list. Justo nodded. "Come on, Maria, put your work clothes on. We'll be done before dinner." After an afternoon of work, they sat together for a relaxed meal, with everyone feeling as if Justo was already part of the family. The sisters, who would not now have to repair the roof, agreed that Justo was more appealing than they first thought. Not handsome, to be sure, but a good catch. And looks, well, they're not everything. A month later, at the next fair, Maria stood in the front row as Justo went through his preparation for the farmer's walk. He set off along the path, and then he took a sharp left turn and walked directly towards Maria. He held both weights in his massive hand, and with his right hand retrieved a gold ring from his trouser pocket. "Will you marry me?" he asked the stunned Maria. "Yes, of course." They kissed. He readjusted the weights and went back to the competition. As Justo walked, a man overseeing the event walked beside him. "Justo, you went off the path. You're disqualified," the judge said. Justo continued past the mark of the winner, just to show he could have done it anyway, and rejoined his future bride, apologizing for not adding another lamb to their flock. Okay, so that is that. But the question is, what are you asked to do? Okay? Now, by the time you come to this, you are a good half an hour into this exam. Yeah? And you've already done A1, you've already listed 5 things you learned about Justo, and you've already done A2, which is the thing that we did in class, where I sat down and I wrote out an essay with you and said, this is what you've got to reach for. But those 2 questions were only worth 10 marks combined. This next one, this A3, is one that is the one we're looking at. And what I would do, if I was in the exam, is I am looking at the question. and I need to remind myself what it is I'm being asked to do. Now, if I had a highlighter, I'd use a highlighter. Usually I just use my pen, but on this occasion I use a highlighter. What am I being asked to do? First thing I'm being asked to do is I'm being asked to read lines 35 to 64. So I know I can ignore everything I need to know. Everything that I'm going to use is in those lines. Okay? And the next thing is, how does the writer? It's about how the writer, and not just that, it's showing the reader. So how does the writer show the reader? Okay? And then the other is, so what is it I'm being asked about? Maria interested in Justo. Okay? Then this question also gives me some pointers about what they want. Okay? They're suggesting, why don't you look at what she's trying to do to attract his attention? And this is the trap that people that get 1 or 2 marks fall into, because that's all they do. They see the question, they see what Maria does to attract his attention, and then they just list a number of facts or a number of quotations about what she's actually doing. They don't try to engage with the writer's use of language, right? And they don't think about the effects on the reader. And they don't notice this little bit at the bottom where it mentions subject terminology. Now, if I've highlighted those, I know that what quality looks like is, what does Maria do to attract the attention? How is the writer using the language? And what effects is it having on a reader? And in that answer, I've got to try and use a little bit of subject terminology. So, if before I jump in there and start writing, I need to look at this section. I need to go up here and I think, what is it? Where's the section? And it is round about here. Oops, let me just get rid of that. Now, so, first off, I'm going to write on this. I'm going to write on my exam sheet. I'm going to put a line across there. Because I know that's where it's starting. And I'm going to start looking down. I'm going to shift this up to the top here. I'm going to stick a line across line 64 there. And this is what I'm looking at. That section there. Now, the next thing I'm thinking, what are they asking me to look for? What are they asking me to look for? I've got to focus on this. I'm going to find something that I can work with, some quotes. In this case, I'm going to use highlighter again, but I'll just use my pen. So, it so happened, that's an unusual thing to say. It's a kind of casual thing to say, and I know I can say something about that. It so happened, that looks good to me. Also, Maria discovered the need. That verb, discovered. That strikes me as she didn't just discover it, it didn't pop into her head, it's a kind of effect in there, and I can say something about that. And then this conversational, who could have imagined? Now, I think I can say something there. Oh look, another one of these verbs next to Maria. Maria unleashed. That's like somebody unleashing dogs or something, or going hunting. Look at this, a feminine laugh. Now that puts a kind of image in my head. But it's a kind of stereotypical thing to say, and I think I can actually say something about that. And also, look, it carries on again, smiling her broadest smile, something else I could use. But then look, it doesn't work though, does it? I'm thinking, look at this, it don't work. He just walked on. And actually she thinks he's a bit of an arrogant man. Not just an arrogant man, the most arrogant man. And then, she's arranging. She hasn't stopped her. She's arranging. She's carrying on. And you can see here immediately there's a whole collection at the end here. And what do they say about him? Now, typical, the sisters are having a go at Maria, but look what happens here. What does Mum say? He has his own farm. And what I'm thinking about is because I've recently read this, I know how it ends. I know that he turns up at the farm to help out. And that makes him incredibly valuable to these people that value him for a particular reason. Although, actually, you know, Maria doesn't sort of like go, yes, yes, absolutely. She actually returns home in silence, which is a kind of thoughtful thing. Why is this important? What bit of information is the writer giving me? The writer doesn't give me this piece of crucial information to the end. And this piece of crucial information is that the dad is disabled. And I think that's an important piece of information, but it wasn't given me until the very end of that section. And it doesn't appear to have been something, certainly on the surface, that was important to Maria. But it's something I can talk about. I'm aware I can talk about it. So I'm now going to have to write an answer, and I want to write a quality answer. So now I'm going to share with you my thought processes as I write an answer using some of these quotations.